Man, I got more racks than a torture cell. Hey y'all, I'm James Wright, and welcome to my shop. Today we're working on this set of racks here. It's for Spokeshaves and card scrapers and cabinet scrapers and draw knives, and basically anything that has that long two-handle design, you can move it on. Each of these are independent. They can slide back and forth, so you can put any different size in there you would want. And this is kind of a catch-all rack, and I've been wanting to build one of these for a long time. It is one of the last things in my tool wall, as I have a plane till and a saw till and other things like that. So if you want to see those videos, linked down below. I have one more thing I want to build down here for files and screwdrivers and rasps and things of that nature, but today we're going to be talking about this. A very, very simple design, but I like the way it came out. It's elegant and it works very well. So let's dive in and take a look at how it's made. For this rack, I want to hold all of my Spokeshaves and the draw knife and a few other things like that that just don't have a good other place to fit. Particularly the card scrapers, they don't have a good place. And it was right around here I suddenly realized, wait a second, I'm missing like 4 of my Spokeshaves. I gotta find those. I don't know where they're at. One of the things I need to do for this particular project is I need to hang up a little bit more French cleat. I didn't put up quite enough the first time. I thought I did, but oh well. Rather than cutting it on the saw bench like I did before, and this time I'm going to just plane it off at that angle. And then I can come back in with the bevel gauge and test that angle, and just keep planing it down until I get to the angle that matches what I currently have up. Then with this particular piece, I can cut them to length and mount up the couple other pieces that I need in order to fill out this project. A fairly quick process, but if you want to see the whole thing, I have a whole video on putting up the French cleats by hand. Now I have this piece that is about 5 inches wide by about 3/4 inch, and I'll make all 4 of the blocks out of this. I'll cut them down to about 15 inches long, and then this will allow me to come back and rip them down lengthwise into about 2.5 inches each. Now I'll come at this with the marking gauge and make a line just shy of halfway across, then flip it over on the other side and make the exact same line on the other side. That way the 2 lines end up being about a saw curve apart. And that makes it very easy to follow right down the middle of the board, as you just keep it in between those 2 lines and get a nice straight cut. For small pieces like this, I don't like cutting them on the saw bench as much. I prefer to cut them vertically in the vise. Just a little bit easier, my personal preference. And this saw is extremely dull. It's going very, very slowly, but it still cuts. I need to sharpen it. I'll have a sharpening video coming up soon when I do that. Next thing I want to do is cut out little chunks out of this that match the French cleat. And I have this cut off piece of French cleat that I can use and mark out with a pencil. The reason I use a pencil is a fatter line, making it slightly larger. That way I can make it slightly larger than the French cleat so they move fairly easily. Then after the pencil, I'll come in with a marking knife and transfer those marks, make them a finer point that I can then follow with a saw. Next up, we can put it in the vise and then cut down with a saw. And I'm going to chop down the straight angle, the straight side and the angle side down to the depth mark. And next, I'll come in with a chisel and remove the waste. And this is really the fun part. I love chopping with a chisel. So I'm going down about halfway down the block, and then about halfway down to the marking line, and then again about halfway down further. And then I'll just keep working my way down until I get right up next to that marking line, and then come in and cut at the marking line. So I'm not jumping to it, just working my way along it. And then we can come in, test and see how it fits, but then I need to put the spacing for the second one. So I'll use the end of the cleat then to draw where it intersects with this board. So I can take it back over to the bench, use that spare block I have, and at that mark I made, mark out again the same shape and size. And second verse, same as the first, go cut it out, hit it with a chisel, and clean it all up. And I really like this part, just busting out these large pieces, and it just, I don't know, it's fun, it's simple, and anyone can do it, and you can very quickly be left with a fun and easy joint that is simple and enjoyable. Just fun. If I said that enough, I love hand tool woodworking because it's just more fun, more time with the wood. Next up, I want to duplicate this onto all 4 of these blocks, all 4 of the cleats. So I'm using the first one as a template and just using it to cut down the same angle and the same location on each one. And exactly like before, except for rather than having marks all over the board, I'm just going to be using the existing piece to follow the line. Once I've cut down on all 4 of these cuts, then I remove the model or template I have and then come in with a chisel and, just like before, clean it out. I have a lot more fun. And even if there's a knot in the way, it still comes out. Next up, I want to flip these around and start putting in the holes that I can put dowels into. These dowels will be what the tools rest on. So on one pair, I am making these dowels 1 inch apart, and the dowels are 1/4 inch oak dowels. To drill out the holes for them, I'm just going to eyeball it, and I have a bevel gauge set up that I'm just going down along it. I'm just kind of keeping it close to what it looks like. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just has to be an angle, and as long as the angles are fairly similar, it comes out and works very well. I'm going to put 10 pegs on each of these, so 20 pegs total for this particular pair. And then in the other end, I want to have slots rather than pegs, and these slots will be where the card scrapers can fit into. I'm using a bigger saw so that there is a wider kerf. The card scrapers won't fit into the kerf made by my back saw, so I have to use a bigger saw that will create a kerf that the card scrapers can fit into. Just keeping them all at an angle, kind of eyeballing it, and there you can see how there's just a little slot. Now for the pegs, I'm going to be using 1/4 inch oak dowel, and I'll just set up a mark on my bench hook so that I can cut them all to approximately the same length. Yeah, they're all a little bit different, give or take an 1/8 inch, and oh well, I kind of like that. And next I want to then clean up the ends of all of these dowels. To do that, I put a block plane in the vise, and that allows me to rub the end on it and basically put a small chamfer all the way around one end of the dowel. This will allow it to go into the hole a little bit easier, and works out fairly nicely. Next up, we can drive them in. This is kind of an interesting thing for me. They're oak dowels, and because of that, they're very porous. So there's a lot of pores running up the length of the dowel. And when I saw these glue dots on the dowel pins, I thought it was getting spattered from one of the other ones, only to realize that actually it's glue that is being forced up the grain of the dowel and coming out the side where the pores are exposed. So kind of interesting. And then here I realize I put them on upside down. Oops. So we need to cut an angle on the opposite side of these two. And thankfully it's a fairly easy fix. It's just that rather than having a flat side on the bottom, they'll be angled on the bottom now. Oh well. But I can come in, pop out these pieces, and we can go back to where we were before. Now that these will work and all of the dowels will be pointing in the right direction. For the second set, I put in the dowels in the correct direction. And on these ones, I put the dowels 2 inches apart and did not put slots at the bottom. That is so I can use larger items hanging on these. And there's more space in between the dowels, so bigger handles can fit into them. After getting them all put together, we can start finishing them off with some boiled linseed oil. Now, I know a lot of people have been kind of complaining that I've been using boiled linseed oil and paste wax too much. But for all of my shop projects, my hand tools that I make, or any of the shop furniture, I really like boiled linseed oil. It just brings out the color like nothing else, and I don't need a protective finish on there. I just want something that's quick and easy, and boiled linseed oil does that. Next, you can see how they just kind of fit on there, and each of the Spokeshaves and everything can fit into the slot. The card scrapers then each have their own slot, and I can start loading those up and expanding my collection as I made enough slots for more, because you can never have enough card scrapers. And then on the other side, we can fit more and larger things. There you have it, a very simple rack. I like the way it comes through. It doesn't take much at all. It hangs nicely, it works well together, and it's really not that difficult of a system, especially with the French cleat here. Everything goes together well. If you'd like to see other videos on the other storage racks I have in the shop here, or making the French cleat wall, I'll leave a link to those down below. and this has been a lot of fun. I have one more rack I'm going to be making here for files, spokeshaves, and screwdrivers and that type of thing, and I'm looking forward to filling out this last spot on my shop wall. So yes, this has been enjoyable. I hope you have liked it as much as I have. I do want to say thank you to the patrons on Patreon. You guys are the reason why this channel is keeping going today. If you'd like to find out more about Patreon or possibly help out with that, you can do so right down here somewhere. Also, if you'd like to subscribe and see some behind the scenes footage, you can do that as well. That's about it for today, and until next time, have a wonderful day.